Ambassador Park Tae-ho stood in his quarters aboard the diplomatic vessel and read the words 3 times. The message was short. It was direct. And it was impossible. The Queen of the Valorian Empire wanted to see him, not a council, not an advisor. The Queen herself had sent for him, and she wanted him to come to their homeworld. No human had ever been invited to the Valorian homeworld. In 50 years of contact, the Valorians had kept humans at a distance. They traded with humanity. They allowed humans to work in their outer colonies, but they never let humans close. They saw humans as useful but primitive. Clever animals, some Valorians called them. Good for labor, good for nothing else. So why would the Queen invite him now? Tae-ho put down the message and walked to the window. Outside, stars stretched into the distance. Somewhere out there, the Valorian homeworld waited. He had studied the Valorians for years. He knew their history, their customs, their slow decline. The Valorians were one of the oldest species in the galaxy. They had built empires when humans still lived in caves. They had conquered worlds, created technology beyond human understanding, and ruled with cold efficiency for thousands of years. But now, they were dying. The door opened behind him. Captain Yoon Da-hai stepped inside, her face serious. She was his security chief, a former soldier who had served with him for 3 years. She was sharp, protective, and she never hid her concerns. "You received the message," she said. It was not a question. "I did." "And you're thinking about going?" Tae-ho turned to face her. "I'm thinking about why they sent it." Da-hai crossed her arms. "It's a trap. It has to be. The Valorians don't invite humans anywhere. They tolerate us. They use us. They don't summon us to their throne world for friendly conversation." "Maybe not," Tae-ho agreed. "But the message came from the Queen directly. Not her council. Not her advisors. Her. That makes it more suspicious, not less." Tae-ho smiled slightly. Da-hai was always careful. It was why he trusted her. But caution alone would not help humanity grow. The Valorians controlled half the galaxy. If the Queen wanted something from humans, Tae-ho needed to know what it was. "Get Dr. Shin," he said. "I want to understand what we're walking into." Da-hai nodded and left. A few minutes later, she returned with Dr. Shin Jae-won. He was their cultural specialist, a quiet man who had spent his life studying alien species. He knew more about Valorian customs than anyone else on the ship. "You've seen the message?" Tae-ho asked. Jae-won nodded slowly. "I have, and I've been thinking about it since." "What do you make of it?" Jae-won sat down and folded his hands together. "The Valorians are dying, Ambassador. Their females can no longer carry children. Their population drops every year. They have tried everything. Technology, medicine, genetic manipulation. Nothing works. They are facing extinction." "We know this," Da-hai said impatiently. "Everyone knows this." "Yes," Jae-won continued. "But what most people don't know is that the Valorians have been searching for a solution. They need compatible species, species that can bond with them genetically and produce offspring." Tae-ho felt something cold settle in his stomach. "And humans are compatible?" Jae-won met his eyes. "Humans are more compatible than any species they have ever found." The room went silent. Da-hai's expression darkened. Tae-ho understood now. The Queen was not inviting him for trade negotiations or political discussions. She wanted something far more personal. "They want to breed with us," Da-hai said flatly. "They want to survive," Jae-won corrected. "To them, this is not about desire. It's about necessity. They see humans as tools for their continuation. Nothing more." Tae-ho walked back to the window. He thought about the message again. The Queen had asked for him specifically, not any human. Him. Why? "There's more," Jae-won said quietly. The Valorians have a custom. When they offer a mate to another species, they offer someone of low value, someone they consider flawed or unwanted. It's not a gift, it's a test. They expect the other species to accept greedily or refuse with disgust. Either response proves that the other species is beneath them. So they'll offer us someone they don't want, Dahai said. And no matter what we do, they'll use it against us. Teho turned around. Then we do something they don't expect. He made his decision. They would go to the Valorian homeworld. They would meet the Queen, and they would show the Valorians that humans were not what they believed. The journey took 3 days. Teho spent most of it preparing. He reviewed Valorian protocols, studied their royal family, and practiced their formal greetings. But no amount of preparation could ready him for what he saw when they arrived. The Valorian homeworld was beautiful. It had golden cities that reached toward the sky, forests of silver trees, and oceans that glowed with soft light. But it was also empty. As their ship descended, Teho saw wide streets with no one walking on them. He saw parks with no children playing. He saw buildings designed for millions that now held only thousands. It was a world waiting to die. They landed at the capital city and were met by a group of Valorian officials. At their head stood High Advisor Kolron, a tall figure with cold eyes and a stern face. He looked at the humans the way someone might look at insects, with distant curiosity and faint disgust. "Ambassador Park," Kolron said. His voice was flat. "The Queen has granted you a great honor. Do not waste it." Teho bowed according to Valorian custom. "I am grateful for the invitation. I hope to be worthy of her time." Kolron's eyes narrowed slightly. He had expected arrogance or nervousness. Teho had shown neither. The advisor turned and led them into the palace. The palace was enormous and ancient. Every wall was covered with the history of the Valorian Empire, their conquests, their achievements, their glory. But Teho noticed something else. Mixed among the images of victory were empty spaces, places where pictures of children should be, places where the future should be. They walked through endless corridors. Dahai stayed close to Teho, her hand near her weapon. Jaewon observed everything with careful eyes. And then, as they passed through a garden, Teho saw her. A young Valorian woman stood alone among the plants. She was tending to flowers that were clearly dying, touching their leaves gently as if trying to give them strength. She wore simple clothes, not the fine robes of royalty. Her hair was dark and her face was sad. She looked up as they passed. Her eyes met Teho's. He expected contempt. He expected her to look away. Instead, she looked at him with curiosity, with interest, with something that might have been hope. Then Kolron's voice cut through the moment. "Ambassador, keep moving." Teho looked away and followed. But he felt her eyes on his back as he walked. He did not know who she was. He did not know why she was alone in that garden. But something about her stayed with him. They reached their quarters as evening approached. Kolron informed them that the Queen would receive Teho at the feast that night. Then he left without another word. Dahai secured the room and checked for surveillance. Jaewon began reviewing his notes. Teho stood by the window again and looked out at the dying world. "The woman in the garden," he said quietly. "Who was she?" Jaewon looked up. "I don't know. She wasn't dressed as nobility. Perhaps a servant?" But Teho did not think so. There had been something in her eyes, something that did not belong to a servant. He would find out soon enough. As the sun set over the Valorian capital, Teho prepared for the feast. He did not know what the Queen would offer him. He did not know what test awaited. But he knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened tonight, he would not give the Valorians the reaction they expected. Kolron arrived at his door as darkness fell. "The Queen is ready for you," the advisor said. "I hope you understand the honor you have been given. No human has ever sat at the Queen's table." Teho straightened his formal clothes and took a breath. "Then I will try not to disappoint her." Kolran smiled coldly. "You will. All lesser species do." He turned and walked away. Teho followed him into the heart of the palace, where the queen of a dying empire waited to ask him a question that would change two civilizations forever. The feast hall was the largest room Teho had ever seen. Golden pillars rose toward a ceiling painted with stars. Long tables stretched across the floor, filled with food that glowed and shimmered. Hundreds of Valorians sat in silence, eating without speaking, their faces empty of expression. It was the quietest feast Teho had ever attended. He walked beside Kolran through the center of the hall. Every Valorian eye turned to watch him. Some looked curious, most looked disgusted. A few smiled with cold amusement, as if watching an animal that had wandered into a place it did not belong. Teho kept his back straight and his face calm. He had expected this. He would not let them see any weakness. Captain Yun Dahai walked behind him, her eyes scanning the room for threats. Dr. Shin Jae-won followed her, observing the Valorians with careful interest. They were the only humans in a sea of aliens, and everyone knew it. At the far end of the hall sat the Queen's table. It was raised above all others, draped in dark cloth. And there, at the center, sat Queen Mirabelle herself. She was ancient. Teho could see that immediately. Her skin was pale, almost silver, and her eyes held the weight of centuries. She wore a crown of black crystal and robes that seemed to absorb the light around her. She was beautiful in the way that a winter storm was beautiful, powerful, cold, and dangerous. She watched Teho approach with an expression he could not read. Beside her sat a young Valorian male. He was tall and strong with sharp features and arrogant eyes. He wore fine armor and looked at Teho with open contempt. This was Prince Draven, the Queen's son and heir. And at the far end of the table, almost hidden in shadow, sat the woman from the garden. She was dressed simply, her head bowed. She did not look at Teho as he approached, but he saw her hands tighten in her lap. Kolran stopped before the Queen's table and bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, I present Ambassador Park Teho of Earth." Teho bowed in the Valorian fashion, low and slow. "Your Majesty, I am honored by your invitation." The Queen studied him for a long moment. Then she spoke. Her voice was deep and smooth, like water over stone. "Ambassador, welcome to our world. Sit, eat. We have much to discuss." She gestured to a seat at a lower table, directly before her. Teho sat. Dahaye and Jae-won took seats beside him. The feast continued around them, silent as before. Teho looked at the food before him. It was strange and unfamiliar. He ate carefully, following the customs Jae-won had taught him. He did not speak. He waited. Prince Draven did not wait. "So," the prince said loudly, "this is a human." He leaned forward, looking at Teho like a scientist examining a specimen. "I expected something more impressive. You are small, weak. Your species has no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. How have you survived this long?" The hall went quiet. Every Valorian watched to see how the human would respond. Teho set down his food and looked at the prince calmly. "We survived by being adaptable, Your Highness. When we were weak, we learned to work together. When we faced enemies stronger than us, we found ways to outsmart them. And when we failed, which we did many times, we learned from our mistakes." Draven laughed. It was not a kind sound. "You failed many times? And you admit this openly? Among Valorians, failure is shameful. We do not speak of it." "Among humans," Teho replied, "we speak of it often. Our history is full of wars, cruelty, and mistakes. We are not proud of these things, But we do not hide from them either. They made us who we are. The prince's smile faded slightly. He had expected the human to boast or become angry. He had not expected honesty. Pretty words, Draven said, but words do not make a species great. Power makes a species great, and humans have very little power. Perhaps, Teho said, but we are still here, and we are still growing. A murmur went through the hall. The queen's eyes narrowed with interest. Even Koloran looked surprised. Then a soft voice spoke from the end of the queen's table. Perhaps power is not the only measure of greatness. Everyone turned. The woman from the garden had lifted her head. Her eyes were fixed on Teho, and there was something fierce in them. Draven's face twisted with anger. "Silence, Evelyn! You were not asked to speak." The woman, Evelyn, did not look away from Teho. "The human speaks truth about his people. He does not hide their flaws. Is that not a kind of strength?" "It is weakness," Draven snapped. "And you would know much about weakness, wouldn't you, sister?" Sister. Teho understood now. This was the princess, the queen's daughter, and from the way Draven spoke to her, she was not respected. Evelyn's face went pale, but she did not back down. "I know that pride without wisdom leads to ruin. Our history teaches that, even if we refuse to learn." Draven stood, his hands clenched. "You dare lecture me about history? You who cannot even control your own mind? You feel everything, sister. Every emotion, every weakness. That is why no Valorian male wants you. That is why you sit in shadow while I sit in light." The words were cruel. They were meant to hurt. And they did. Evelyn's eyes filled with pain, and she looked down at her hands. But Teho saw something else in her face. Not just pain, anger. A deep, old anger that she had carried for a very long time. He looked at the queen. She was watching her children with an expression of deep sadness. She did not defend her daughter. She did not silence her son. She simply watched, as if this was something she had seen many times before. Teho made a decision. "Your Highness," he said to Draven, "may I ask a question?" Draven turned to him with irritation. "What?" "You say that feeling emotions is a weakness. But is it not emotions that drive us to protect what we love? To fight for what matters? To create beauty and meaning?" Teho kept his voice calm and respectful. "Among humans, we believe that those who feel deeply often understand the world more clearly than those who feel nothing at all." The hall went completely silent. Draven stared at Teho with disbelief. No one had ever challenged him so directly. No one had ever defended his broken sister. "You know nothing of Valorian ways," the prince said coldly. "That is true," Teho agreed. "But I know something of suffering, and I know that those who have suffered often have the most wisdom to offer, if we are willing to listen." He looked at Evelyn as he spoke. She raised her head slowly. Their eyes met again, and this time he saw something new in her expression. Gratitude, and surprise that anyone would speak for her. Queen Mirabelle raised her hand. The hall fell silent. "Enough," she said. Her voice was quiet but absolute. "The human has spoken his piece, and he has shown more courtesy than some at my own table." She looked at Draven. The prince's jaw tightened, but he sat down without another word. The queen turned her attention to Teho. "Ambassador, you interest me. Your species interests me. After the feast, you will come to my private chambers. I have a proposal for you." Teho bowed his head. "I am honored, Your Majesty." "Do not thank me yet," the queen said. There was no warmth in her voice. "You do not know what I will ask." The feast continued, but Teho could not focus on the food. He thought about what awaited him. He thought about the queen's cold eyes and the prince's hatred. And he thought about Evelyn sitting alone at the end of the table, treated like a failure by her own family. When the feast ended, Coloran came to escort him to the queen. Dahai tried to follow, but the advisor stopped her. The queen will see the ambassador alone. Dahai's hand moved toward her weapon. I go where he goes. It's all right, Tejo said quietly. He touched her arm. Wait for me. I'll be fine. Dahai did not look convinced, but she stepped back. Jaewon gave Tejo a small nod of support. Tejo followed Coloran out of the feast hall and into the corridors of the palace. They walked in silence through halls filled with ancient history and empty rooms. As they turned a corner, Tejo saw a figure waiting in the shadows. It was Evelyn. She stepped forward quickly, her eyes urgent. Ambassador. Coloran moved to stop her. Princess, you should not be here. I need one moment, she said. She looked at Tejo with an intensity that surprised him. Whatever my mother offers you, please, do not accept. Tejo frowned. Why? Because it will not be what you think. And because... She stopped. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Because I do not wish to be sold to someone who sees me as a prize. Before Tejo could respond, Coloran took Evelyn by the arm. Enough! Return to your quarters, princess! Evelyn pulled away from him. She gave Tejo one last look, desperate, afraid, and strangely hopeful, and then she disappeared into the shadows. Coloran straightened his robes and gestured forward. The queen is waiting. Tejo walked on, but Evelyn's words stayed with him. Do not accept. She knew what her mother was going to offer. And she was afraid. He did not know what awaited him in the queen's chambers. But he knew now that this was not just about politics or survival. This was about a woman who had never been given a choice. And Tejo was beginning to understand what he needed to do. Tejo noticed it the moment he stepped inside. The rest of the palace was comfortable, even warm, but this room felt like winter. The walls were bare stone, and the only light came from small windows high above. In the center of the room stood a single chair, and on that chair sat Queen Mirabelle. She looked different here than she had at the feast. Smaller, older. The crown was gone from her head, and her robes were simpler. She looked like what she was, a tired ruler carrying a weight too heavy for anyone to bear. Coloran bowed and left the room. The door closed behind him with a heavy sound. Tejo was alone with the queen. Come closer, she said. Tejo walked forward and stopped a few paces from her chair. He waited. The queen studied him for a long moment. Her eyes moved over his face, his hands, his posture. She was measuring him, judging him, trying to understand what kind of creature stood before her. Do you know why you are here? She asked. I believe so, Your Majesty. Tell me what you believe. Tejo chose his words carefully. Your species is dying. You cannot produce children. You need compatible species to continue your bloodline. Humans are compatible. He paused. You wish to propose a arrangement. The queen's expression did not change. You are direct. I appreciate that. So I will be direct as well. She stood and walked slowly around the room. Her fingers touched the cold walls as she moved. The Valorian Empire has stood for 12,000 years, she said. We have conquered worlds, built civilizations, and shaped the galaxy. We believed we would rule forever. She stopped and looked at Tejo. We were wrong. She returned to her chair and sat down heavily. 300 years ago, our females began to lose the ability to carry children. At first it was rare, then it became common. Now it is universal. Every Valorian female is barren, every single one. Her voice was flat, but Tejo heard the pain beneath it. We have tried everything, science, medicine, technology beyond your understanding. Nothing works. We are the last generation of Valorians. Tejo said nothing. There was nothing to say. But there is one hope, the queen continued. Genetic bonding with compatible species. If a Valorian female bonds with a compatible male from another species, she can bear children. The children will be hybrid, but they will carry Valorian blood. Our species will continue. And humans are compatible, Teho said. Humans are more than compatible. Your genetic structure aligns with ours better than any species we have ever found. A human-Valorian pairing would produce strong, healthy children. The Queen's eyes locked onto his. This is why I have called you here, Ambassador. I wish to offer you a mate. Teho had expected this. He had prepared for it. But hearing the words spoken aloud still struck him. Who? He asked. The Queen's face tightened slightly. My daughter, Evelyn. The woman from the garden. The princess who sat in shadow while her brother sat in light. The one Draven had called broken. Why her? Teho asked. The Queen's eyes hardened. Because she is flawed. Teho waited for her to explain. Evelyn was born with a defect, the Queen said. She is an empath. She feels the emotions of others as if they were her own. Every pain, every fear, every joy. She experiences them all. Among Valorians, this is considered a weakness. We value control. We value discipline. Evelyn has neither. She cannot shield herself from the feelings around her. She is overwhelmed constantly. The Queen stood again and walked to a window. She looked out at the empty city below. No Valorian male will take her. They see her as defective, unstable, unworthy of bonding. She turned back to Teho. But you are human. Your standards are different. Your species is emotional by nature. You might find her acceptable. Teho heard what she was not saying. She was offering him her unwanted daughter, the child no one else wanted. She expected him to accept eagerly, a primitive human taking whatever scraps the great Valorians would give. Or she expected him to refuse with disgust, proving that even humans would not want her broken child. Either way, the Valorians would win. Either way, Evelyn would lose. This is a great honor, Teho said slowly. A human bonding with Valorian royalty would change the relationship between our species forever. Yes, the Queen agreed. It would. May I ask some questions before I give my answer? The Queen frowned slightly. This was not how these conversations usually went. Other species simply accepted or refused. They did not ask questions. Ask, she said. Teho took a breath. Does Princess Evelyn want this? The Queen stared at him. What? Does she want to bond with me? Has she agreed to this arrangement? She is a princess of the Valorian Empire. Her duty is to serve her people. Her personal feelings are irrelevant. So she has not been asked. The Queen's expression cooled. No, she has not been asked. She does not need to be asked. This is her purpose. Teho nodded slowly. Has she met me? Does she know anything about me? She knows you are human. That is enough. With respect, Your Majesty, I don't think it is. The room went very cold. The Queen rose to her full height. Her eyes blazed with anger. You dare to question me? You, a human? Your species has existed for the blink of an eye. You have no right to challenge Valorian customs. Teho did not step back. I mean no disrespect. But among humans, bonding is not just duty. It is choice. Both people must want it. Both people must agree. That is a weakness of your species. Perhaps. But it is also our strength. Teho kept his voice steady. I cannot accept someone who does not want me. I cannot take someone who has not chosen me. That is not how humans bond. The Queen laughed. It was a cold, bitter sound. Then what do you propose, Ambassador? That I parade my daughter before you like merchandise? That she perform for your approval? No, Teho said. I propose that I meet her, that I talk to her, that I know her, and that she knows me." He paused. "And then I propose that she decides for herself." The queen went silent. She stared at Tae-ho as if he had spoken in a language she did not understand. No one had ever said these things to her before. No species had ever asked to court a Valorian. They took what was offered or they walked away. Choice had never been part of the conversation. "You want her to choose," the queen said slowly. "Yes." "And if she refuses you?" Tae-ho met her eyes. "Then I will return to my ship and leave your world, and I will not think less of her for it." The queen sat down again. She was quiet for a long time. Tae-ho waited. Finally, she spoke. "You confuse me, Ambassador." "I'm sorry." "No. Do not apologize." She looked at him with something new in her eyes. Not anger, not contempt, something he could not name. "I have ruled this empire for 400 years. I have negotiated with 100 species. I have seen greed, fear, ambition, and cruelty, but I have never seen this." "Seen what, Your Majesty?" The queen's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "I have never seen someone offer my daughter something I never gave her." Tae-ho frowned. "What is that?" "A choice." And then, to Tae-ho's shock, the queen's eyes filled with tears. She turned away quickly, hiding her face. Her shoulders trembled. Tae-ho stood frozen, unsure what to do. He had expected anger. He had expected threats. He had not expected this. "I gave her no choice," the queen said. Her voice was thick with emotion. "When she was born with her gift, her curse, I told her it was a flaw. I let her brother mock her. I let my court dismiss her. I never asked what she wanted. I never asked how she felt." She took a shaking breath. "Because I was never asked. I was given to a male I did not know for the good of the empire. I did my duty. I expected her to do the same." She turned back to Tae-ho. Tears ran down her ancient face. "And now a human comes to my throne world and asks if my daughter wants this, and I realize—" She stopped. She could not finish. Tae-ho stepped closer. "Your Majesty, it is not too late." The queen wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She straightened her spine and lifted her chin. She was a queen again, but something had changed. "You may meet my daughter," she said. "You may know her, and she may know you." She fixed Tae-ho with a fierce look. "But hear me well, Ambassador. If you hurt her, if you make her believe she has a choice and then take it away, your species will burn. I will see to it myself." Tae-ho bowed deeply. "I understand. Go now. Kolran will make the arrangements." Tae-ho turned and walked toward the door, but before he reached it, the queen spoke again. "Ambassador." He stopped and looked back. The queen sat in her cold chamber, alone with her grief and her guilt and her strange new hope. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for asking the question no one ever asked me." Tae-ho bowed once more and left the room. In the corridor outside, he found Kolran waiting. The advisor's face was suspicious. "What happened in there?" Kolran demanded. Tae-ho walked past him. "The queen has given me permission to meet Princess Evelyn." "Meet her?" Kolran hurried after him. "That is not how this works. You accept or you refuse. There is no meeting." "There is now," Tae-ho said. He continued down the corridor. And as he walked, he thought about Evelyn in the garden, tending to dying flowers because no one else would. He would meet her tomorrow. He would talk to her. He would listen. And for the first time in her life, someone would ask her what she wanted. He lay in his quarters and stared at the ceiling, thinking about what had happened. The queen's tears, Evelyn's warning, the cold weight of a dying empire pressing down on everyone within it. Dahai and Jae-won had asked him many questions when he returned. He had told them some of what happened, but not everything. He did not tell them about the queen's tears. That felt too private, too raw. Now, Morning light crept through the window, and Tae-ho rose to prepare himself. He did not know what to expect from this meeting. He only knew that he needed to be honest. Honest with Evelyn, honest with himself. Kolran arrived shortly after sunrise. The advisor's face was tight with disapproval. "The princess awaits you in the eastern garden," he said. "You will have 1 hour. Guards will be present." "Thank you," Tae-ho said. "Do not thank me." Kolran's voice was hard. "I opposed this arrangement. The queen should not have agreed to your unusual request. But she is the queen, and I obey." He led Tae-ho through the palace corridors, past silent servants and empty rooms. They walked for several minutes before reaching a doorway that opened onto a garden filled with morning light. And there she was. Princess Evelyn stood among the flowers, her hands clasped before her. She wore a simple dress of pale blue, and her dark hair fell around her shoulders. She looked nervous. She looked afraid. But when she saw Tae-ho, something shifted in her expression. Curiosity, caution, and that same strange hope he had seen before. Kolran gestured for Tae-ho to enter. 1 hour, he repeated, and then he stepped back to stand with the guards at the garden's edge. Tae-ho walked forward slowly. He stopped a few paces from Evelyn and bowed. "Princess, thank you for meeting with me." She studied him for a moment. "I did not have a choice." Then she paused. "Or perhaps I did. My mother said I could refuse. She has never said that before. What did you decide?" "I decided to come." Evelyn tilted her head. "I wanted to understand why a human would do what you did." "What did I do?" "You asked for me to choose. No one has ever done that." Her voice was soft but steady. "Among Valorians, females are given. We do not choose. We do not want. We serve." Tae-ho felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his face calm. "That sounds very lonely." Evelyn's eyes widened slightly. She had not expected him to understand. "It is," she said quietly. They stood in silence for a moment. The garden was beautiful. Flowers of every color, trees with silver leaves, a small stream running through stones. But Tae-ho noticed that many of the plants were struggling, wilting, dying. "You were here yesterday," he said, "tending to these flowers." Evelyn nodded. "They are from the old gardens, before the decline. Most have died. These are the last. I try to keep them alive, but—" She touched a flower gently. Its petals were brown at the edges. "They know. They know their time is ending." Tae-ho looked at her. "Do you feel them? The flowers?" She glanced at him with surprise. "You know about my ability. Your mother told me. She called it a flaw." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "She would. All Valorians would. Empathy is weakness to them." She turned away. "Yes, I feel the flowers. I feel their struggle. I feel everything around me, every emotion, every pain. That is why I come here. The plants are quieter than people." Tae-ho stepped closer. "Among humans, empathy is valued. Those who feel deeply often become healers, counselors, artists. They help others understand their own emotions." "That sounds strange." "It sounds natural to me." Evelyn turned back to face him. Her eyes searched his face, and Tae-ho knew she was doing more than looking. She was feeling, reading his emotions the way others might read words on a page. "You are not afraid of me," she said slowly. "No." "You are not disgusted." "No." "You are—" She frowned, concentrating. "Curious, concerned, and something else. Something warm." Tae-ho smiled slightly. "I was told you would know my feelings before I did." "Does that bother you?" "It means I cannot lie to you. That seems like a good thing." Evelyn stared at him. Then, slowly, a small smile touched her lips. It was the first time Tae-ho had seen her smile. "You are very strange," she said, "for a human." "You are very honest," he replied, "for a princess." They walked together through the garden. Evelyn showed him the different plants, explaining where they came from and what they meant to Valorian culture. Tae-ho listened carefully. He asked questions. He learned. And as they talked, something changed between them. The tension eased. The fear faded. They began to see each other not as alien and human, not as princess and ambassador, but as two people trying to understand one another. "May I ask you something personal?" Tae-ho said. Evelyn hesitated, then nodded. "Your brother said that no Valorian male wants you, that you are unwanted." He chose his words carefully. "Is that true?" Her face hardened. "It is true that no Valorian male has asked for me, but not because I am unwanted, because I am feared." She looked at him directly. "They know I can feel their true emotions. They cannot hide their cruelty, their selfishness, their weakness from me. They do not want a mate who sees them as they really are." Tae-ho understood. It was not that Evelyn was flawed. It was that she was too honest, too clear. In a society built on control and suppression, she was dangerous. "I think," he said slowly, "that your ability is not a flaw. I think it is a gift. And I think the Valorians have been wrong to treat you as they have." Evelyn's breath caught. For a moment, she could not speak. "You mean that?" she whispered. "You can feel that I do." She nodded. Tears formed in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. They sat on a stone bench beside the stream. The hour was passing quickly. Tae-ho knew Kolran would come for him soon. But there was something he needed to say first. "Princess, Evelyn." He turned to face her. "I want you to know that I am not here to take you. I am not here to claim you as some prize or use you for politics. I came here because I believe that people should know each other before they bond. I believe that both people should want it." Evelyn watched him carefully. "And what do you want, Ambassador?" Tae-ho considered the question. "I want to know you. I want to understand who you are, not who your family says you are. I want to see if there is something real between us. Something worth building." He paused. "But only if you want the same thing. And if I refuse you, then I will leave, and I will wish you well. You owe me nothing." Evelyn was silent for a long moment. Tae-ho waited. Finally she spoke. "All my life, I have been told what I am, flawed, broken, unwanted. I have been given to suitors who looked at me with pity or contempt. I have been treated as a burden to be removed." Her voice trembled, but she continued. "And now you sit here and ask me what I want. You offer me a choice. You tell me that my ability is a gift." She looked at him with an intensity that made his heart pound. "I do not know if I can trust this," she said. "I do not know if I can trust you. But I know that what you are offering is something I have never had before." She reached out and touched his hand. The contact was brief, but Tae-ho felt something pass between them. A connection. A beginning. "I will know you, Ambassador," she said, "and I will let you know me. And then we will see." Tae-ho nodded. "That is all I ask." They sat together as the sun rose higher over the garden. They talked about small things, human food, Valorian music, the differences between their worlds. They laughed once or twice, softly, like two people testing the ice beneath their feet. When Kolran came to end the meeting, Tae-ho rose and bowed to Evelyn. "Thank you for this time, Princess." "Evelyn," she said, "if we are to know each other, you should use my name." "Evelyn," he repeated. "Then you should call me Tae-ho." She smiled again, that small, careful smile that meant so much. Teho, she said, I will see you again. He walked away with Kolran, but he looked back once. Evelyn stood in the garden among her dying flowers, watching him go. And for the first time, she did not look afraid. She looked hopeful. Teho returned to his quarters to find Dahai and Jaewon waiting anxiously. Well, Dahai demanded, what happened? Teho sat down heavily. We talked. And we will talk again. She agreed to know me, to let me know her. He looked at his friends. This is just the beginning. Jaewon leaned forward. The Valorians will not like this. They expect quick decisions, clear transactions. This courtship will confuse them. Good, Teho said. Let them be confused. Maybe they will learn something. Dahai shook her head. You're playing a dangerous game, Ambassador. No, Teho replied. I'm doing something far more dangerous than that. What? He thought of Evelyn's smile. He thought of her tears and her hope and her fierce, honest eyes. I'm treating her like a person, he said, and that might just change everything. They walked in the gardens. They sat in quiet courtyards. They talked for hours about everything and nothing, their childhoods, their dreams, the things they feared. Guards always watched from a distance, and Kolran always stood nearby with suspicious eyes. But within those boundaries, something real began to grow. On the third day, Evelyn asked Teho about Earth. Tell me about your world, she said. They were sitting beside the stream in her garden, the sun warm on their faces. I have only heard that it is primitive, but I do not think you are primitive. Teho smiled. Earth is messy, crowded, loud. We have beautiful places and ugly places. We have great kindness and terrible cruelty. He picked up a stone and turned it in his hands. But we also have music, art, stories. We create things just because they make us feel something. I think that is what I love most about being human. Evelyn leaned closer. Tell me about human music. Teho thought for a moment. Then he began to hum softly, a simple melody his mother used to sing to him when he was a child. It was nothing special, just a folk song about the sea. But Evelyn's eyes went wide. I can feel it, she whispered. The music, the emotion inside it. It is beautiful. Teho stopped humming. Can you not feel music in Valorian songs? Valorian music is precise, mathematical. It is meant to demonstrate skill, not emotion. She shook her head slowly. I have never felt anything like that before. Teho made a mental note to bring her recordings from Earth. He wanted to see her face when she heard a full orchestra, or a simple guitar, or a child singing. On the fifth day, Evelyn asked about human bonding. You said that among humans, both people must choose, she said. How does it work? How do you know when you have found the right person? Teho leaned back against a tree. Honestly? You often don't know. Not at first. You meet someone, you feel something. Interest, attraction, curiosity. Then you spend time together. You learn about them. You see how they treat others, how they handle problems, what makes them laugh. And then, if you are lucky, you realize that you don't want to be without them, that your life is better when they are in it. He looked at her. It takes time, and it doesn't always work. Sometimes people choose each other and then realize they were wrong. Sometimes they don't choose at all and miss something wonderful. Evelyn considered this. That sounds uncertain, risky. It is. Then why do humans do it that way? Teho smiled. Because when it works, when you find someone who truly knows you and chooses you anyway, it is the best feeling in the universe. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and touched his hand again. This time she did not pull away. I think I am beginning to understand, she said softly. On the seventh day, Evelyn told Taeho about her life. "I was different from the beginning," she said. They were walking through a corridor of the palace, past ancient tapestries and empty rooms. "My ability appeared when I was very young. At first, my mother thought it was a gift. She thought I might become a great leader, able to read the hearts of enemies and allies. What changed? I could not control it. I felt everything, all the time. When my tutors were angry, I felt their anger as my own. When servants were sad, I wept for them. When my brother was cruel..." She stopped and took a breath. "I felt the pleasure he took in causing pain, and I could not hide my reactions." Taeho's hands clenched. "Your brother hurt you? He hurt many people. He still does. But I was the only one who could not pretend I did not see it." Evelyn's voice was flat, controlled. "My mother decided that my ability was a flaw. She had me trained to suppress it. When that failed, she isolated me. I was kept away from court, away from visitors, away from anything that might trigger my empathy. Away from life." "Yes." Evelyn stopped walking. "I have spent most of my years alone, Taeho. Alone in gardens and empty rooms, feeling the echoes of emotions from far away. I have never had a friend. I have never been loved." She looked at him. "Do you understand now why I do not know how to trust this?" Taeho stepped closer to her. "I understand. And I do not blame you for being cautious." He held her gaze. "But I want you to know something. Among humans, there is a word for people like you. We call them kind." Evelyn blinked. "Kind. You feel the pain of others. You cannot ignore it. You care even when caring hurts you." He reached out and took her hands in his. "That is not a flaw. That is the best thing a person can be." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. This time, she let them fall. "I have waited my whole life," she whispered, "to hear someone say that." Taeho pulled her close. She did not resist. For a long moment, they stood together in the empty corridor, two people from different worlds holding on to each other. When they finally stepped apart, Evelyn wiped her eyes and managed a small laugh. "You are making me very emotional, Taeho." "Good," he said. "Emotion is not something to fear." She smiled at him, a real smile, warm and open, and Taeho felt his heart do something it had not done in a very long time. It hoped, but not everyone was pleased with what was happening. Prince Draven watched from the shadows. He had seen his sister laughing with the human. He had seen her holding his hands. He had seen her smile. It disgusted him. He went to High Advisor Kolran that night. "This must stop," Draven said. They stood in Kolran's private office, far from listening ears. "The human is manipulating her. He is using his alien tricks to turn her against us." Kolran nodded slowly. "I agree. The situation is becoming dangerous. The Queen is already changing. She speaks of choice and emotion as if they were virtues. If this continues, it will spread. Our entire society could be infected by human weakness." "Then we stop it." "How?" Draven smiled coldly. "We show everyone what the human really is. We expose him as a manipulator, a deceiver. We prove that he came here not for love but for power." Kolran stroked his chin. "And the evidence for this?" "We create it." The two of them began to plan. They would forge communications showing that Earth had sent Taeho to seduce Evelyn and use her as a weapon. They would present these to the Queen and the court. The human would be expelled, or executed, and Evelyn would be returned to her proper place, alone, silent, and controlled. Neither of them knew that Evelyn could feel their hatred from across the palace. She sat in her garden as darkness fell, her hands trembling. She could not hear their words, but she could feel their intention. Cold, sharp, poisonous. Something terrible was coming. She had to warn Taeho. But how? The guards watched her constantly. Kolaran monitored every message she sent. She could not reach him without being seen. Then she remembered something Teho had told her. Humans believe in taking risks for the people they care about. Evelyn stood up. For the first time in her life, she was going to take a risk. She left the garden and walked toward the human quarters. The guards called after her, but she ignored them. Let them follow. Let them watch. She did not care anymore. She found Teho in the corridor outside his room. He turned when he saw her, surprise and concern on his face. "Evelyn? What's wrong?" "They are coming for you," she said quickly. "My brother and Kolran. They plan to destroy you. I can feel their hatred, their scheme. I don't know what they will do, but it will be soon." Teho took her hands. "Slow down. Tell me everything you know." She told him what she had felt, the cold calculation, the satisfaction of planned cruelty, the intent to separate them forever. When she finished, Teho was quiet for a moment. "Are you afraid?" she asked. He looked at her. "Yes, but not for myself." "Then for what?" "For you." He squeezed her hands. "If I am expelled or killed, they will punish you for helping me. They will isolate you again. They will make your life even worse." Evelyn lifted her chin. "I have been isolated my whole life. I have been punished for being what I am. I am tired of it." Her voice grew stronger. "Whatever happens, I will not let them destroy what we are building. I will stand with you." Teho looked at her with something like wonder. "You have changed." "You changed me," she said. "You made me believe I deserved better." He pulled her close and held her. Around them, the palace was dark and full of danger. But in that moment, they were not afraid. They had each other, and they would face whatever came together. Teho had been summoned without explanation. He stood in the great hall with Da Haye and Jae-Wan beside him, facing the queen's throne. The room was full of Valorian nobles, their faces cold and expectant. Something was very wrong. Queen Miravel sat on her throne, her expression troubled. Prince Draven stood at her right hand, smiling with dark satisfaction. High Advisor Kolaran stood at her left, holding a data tablet in his hands. Evelyn was nowhere to be seen. "Ambassador Park," the queen said. Her voice was formal, distant. "You have been brought here to answer serious accusations." Teho kept his face calm. "What accusations, Your Majesty?" Kolran stepped forward. "We have obtained communications from your ship, communications that reveal the true purpose of your mission here." He activated the data tablet. A holographic display appeared in the air, showing messages that seemed to come from Earth's government. Teho read them quickly. They ordered him to seduce Princess Evelyn by any means necessary. They instructed him to use her empathic abilities as a weapon against the Valorian Empire. They spoke of conquest, manipulation, and deception. The messages were fake. Teho knew it immediately. He had never received any such orders. Earth's government had sent him to negotiate, nothing more. But the court did not know that. Murmurs spread through the hall. Nobles looked at Teho with disgust and anger. Some reached for weapons. "These are lies," Teho said firmly. "I have never seen these messages. They were not sent by my government." "Of course you would say that," Draven said. He walked down from the throne platform, his eyes gleaming with triumph. "What else would a deceiver say? I am not a deceiver. Then explain these communications." "I cannot explain something that does not exist." Teho looked at the queen. "Your Majesty, I swear to you on my life, these messages are forgeries. Someone has created them to destroy the bond between your daughter and me." Draven laughed. "Bond? There is no bond. You are a manipulator who used alien tricks to seduce my weak sister. You took advantage of her defect, her ridiculous empathy to make her trust you. And now you will pay for it." He turned to the court. I move that the human ambassador be arrested and executed for conspiracy against the Valorian Empire." Cheers rose from some of the nobles. Others looked uncertain. The queen raised her hand for silence. "Ambassador," she said. Her voice was heavy with something, not anger, but pain. "I gave you permission to court my daughter because you spoke words that touched me. You asked for choice. You spoke of knowing and being known. But these messages—" She gestured at the holographic display. "They suggest that everything you said was a lie." Teho stepped forward. The guards tensed. "Your Majesty, you have lived for 400 years. You have seen countless liars, countless deceivers. Look at me now. Feel the truth of my words." He met her eyes. "I came here with no plan to manipulate anyone. I asked to know your daughter because I believed she deserved to be known. Every word I spoke to you was honest. Every moment I spent with Evelyn was real." The queen studied him. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then a voice rang out from the back of the hall. "He tells the truth." Everyone turned. Evelyn stood in the doorway, her face pale but determined. Guards moved to stop her, but she pushed past them and walked into the center of the hall. "Evelyn, no—" Teho started. "The messages are fake," Evelyn said loudly. "They were created by Prince Draven and High Advisor Kolran to destroy the ambassador and punish me for stepping out of my place." The hall erupted in shock. Nobles shouted. Draven's face twisted with fury. "How dare you!" he snarled. "You have no evidence. You have only your broken mind and your pathetic feelings." "My feelings are evidence," Evelyn said. She turned to the court, her voice rising. "I am an empath. I feel the emotions of everyone in this room. I cannot lie, and I cannot be lied to." She pointed at Draven. "I feel your hatred, brother, your jealousy, your pleasure at causing pain. You created those messages because you cannot stand to see me happy." Draven stepped toward her threateningly. "Silence! I will not be silent," Evelyn shouted. "For years I was silent. I let you mock me. I let Kolran isolate me. I let Mother treat me as a burden to be given away. But no more." She turned to the queen. "Mother, look at me. You know I cannot lie about what I feel. I felt Draven's scheme forming days ago. I felt Kolran's cold satisfaction as they planned this betrayal. And I feel the ambassador's heart right now. His fear, his determination, his care for me." She took a breath. "He is not our enemy. He is the first person who ever treated me as worthy of choice. And I will not let you destroy him for that." The hall fell silent. Every eye turned to the queen. Mirabelle sat very still on her throne. Her ancient face was unreadable, but Teho saw something in her eyes, a struggle, a war between old ways and new understanding. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was quiet but clear. "Kolran, come forward." The advisor walked to the base of the throne, his face confident. "Your Majesty, did you create these messages?" "Of course not, Your Majesty. The accusations are baseless. The princess is clearly confused by—" "I did not ask for explanations." The queen's voice turned cold. "I asked a simple question. Did you create these messages?" Kolran hesitated. And in that hesitation, Teho saw the queen understand. "You forget," Mirabelle said slowly, "that I have ruled this empire for 400 years. I have seen countless liars. I know deception when it stands before me." She stood from her throne. She seemed to grow taller, more powerful, more terrible. "You have served me for a century, Kolran. I trusted you with my empire, my children, my future. And you repay me with this? You forge evidence to destroy a guest under my protection? You conspire with my son against my daughter?" Kolran fell to his knees. "Your Majesty, I only wanted to protect the empire from human influence. You wanted to protect your own power." The queen's voice cracked like thunder. You feared that change would make you irrelevant, so you tried to destroy it before it could begin." She turned to Draven. The prince stood frozen, his confidence shattered. "And you, my son, my heir." The queen's voice dropped to a whisper that was somehow worse than shouting. "You have mocked your sister her entire life. You have called her broken, unwanted, worthless. And now you would have her stand alone again, stripped of the first happiness she has ever known, because you cannot bear to see her treated with dignity." Draven tried to speak. "Mother, Be silent." The queen raised her hand. "I have made many mistakes in my long life. I gave Evelyn no choice because I was never given one. I let you abuse her because I did not want to see it. I told myself it was strength. It was not. It was cowardice." She looked at Evelyn. Tears glistened in the queen's ancient eyes. "You spoke the truth today, daughter. You stood against your brother and my most trusted advisor. You defended a stranger because it was right." She paused. "You are not flawed. You never were. I was." Evelyn's breath caught. "Mother." The queen turned back to the court. Her voice rang with authority. "High Advisor Colron is stripped of his rank and banished from this palace. Prince Draven will be confined to his quarters pending review of his fitness to rule. The charges against Ambassador Park are dismissed. The evidence was forged, and he is innocent." She looked at Taeho. "Ambassador, you have my apology, and my gratitude." Taeho bowed. "Thank you, Your Majesty." The queen walked down from her throne, something she rarely did. She crossed the hall to where Evelyn stood and took her daughter's hands. "I failed you," Miravel said quietly. "For your entire life, I failed you. I do not know if I can make it right, but I will try." Evelyn could not speak. Tears streamed down her face. The queen pulled her into an embrace, the first embrace they had shared in centuries. Around them, the court watched in stunned silence. This was not how Valorians behaved. This was not how the Empire worked. But perhaps, Taeho thought, it was how it should work. When the queen finally released her daughter, she turned to face him. "Ambassador, I asked you once if you desired my daughter. You gave me an answer that changed everything." She looked at Evelyn, then back at Taeho. "Now I ask her, Evelyn, what do you want?" Evelyn wiped her eyes. She looked at Taeho. She looked at her mother. She looked at the court full of nobles who had ignored her, dismissed her, treated her as nothing. Then she spoke a single word. "Choice." The queen nodded. "Then you shall have it. Whatever you decide, you will have my blessing." Evelyn turned to Taeho. She crossed the distance between them and took his hands. "I choose to know you more," she said. "I choose to see where this path leads." Taeho smiled. "Then we walk it together." Around them, the Valorian Empire began to change. It would be slow. It would be difficult. There would be resistance and fear and anger. But for the first time in 300 years, there was also hope. The Valorian homeworld was different now. Not completely changed, that would take generations, but different. The silence was not as heavy. The emptiness was not as cold. Something new had entered the ancient empire, something that had been missing for centuries. Hope. Taeho stood in the garden where he had first seen Evelyn. The flowers were blooming now. She had saved them. With care, with patience, with the attention that no one else would give, she had brought them back from the edge of death. She was good at that. He heard footsteps behind him and turned. Evelyn walked toward him through the garden, wearing a dress of deep blue that matched the sky. She was smiling, not the small, careful smile of their early meetings, but a real smile, warm and open and free. "Are you nervous?" she asked. "Yes," he admitted. "Are you?" "Yes." She took his hands. "But the good kind of nervous. The kind that means something important is about to happen." Today was the day of their bonding ceremony. It had taken months to arrange. The Valorians had never performed a bonding ceremony with a human before. There were no traditions, no protocols, no rules. So Teho and Avalyn had created their own, blending human customs with Valorian ones. They would exchange vows. They would share food from both worlds. They would make promises not just to each other, but to the future they would build together. It would not be perfect. It would not be traditional, but it would be theirs. Captain Yoon-Dahi found them in the garden an hour later. "It's time," she said. She was wearing her formal uniform, and she looked almost happy, which for Dahi was remarkable. "The hall is ready. Everyone is waiting." Teho nodded. He looked at Avalyn. "Ready?" She squeezed his hands. "I have been ready my whole life. I just didn't know it." They walked together through the palace corridors. Servants stopped to watch them pass. Some looked curious, some looked hopeful, a few looked disapproving, but none tried to stop them. The changes in the empire had already begun. Queen Mirabelle had announced new policies, new ways of thinking. Females would be given more choices. Empathy would be studied as a potential strength, not a weakness. Relations with humans would be expanded. Not everyone agreed. There was resistance from traditionalists, anger from those who feared change. Draven remained confined to his quarters, bitter and furious. Some said he was plotting revenge. But for now, the Queen's authority held. For now, the future remained possible. The ceremony hall was magnificent. It had been decorated with flowers from the garden and lights from both Valorian and human traditions. Hundreds of guests filled the room, Valorians nobles, human diplomats, and others who had come to witness history. Taiho saw Dr. Shin Jae-won standing near the front, smiling broadly. He saw Captain Dahi take her place as his witness, her hand resting on her weapon out of habit. And he saw Queen Mirabelle sitting in the place of honor, watching her daughter with an expression of pride and love. The Queen had changed most of all. She had spoken to Avalyn many times over the past months. Real conversations, honest conversations. She had apologized. She had listened. She had tried to understand what she had done wrong and how to do better. It was not perfect. 400 years of habits did not disappear in 6 months. But it was progress. It was effort. It was enough. The ceremony began. A Valorian elder spoke words of tradition, honor, duty, the continuation of the bloodline. Then a human officiant spoke words of love, partnership, trust, the choice to stand together through all things. When the vows came, Avalyn went first. "Teho," she said, her voice steady and clear. "Before you came, I had given up hope. I believed I would live my life alone, unwanted, unseen. I believed that my feelings were a curse that made me weak." She paused. "You showed me that I was wrong. You saw my ability as a gift. You saw my isolation as tragedy, not failure. You saw me." She took his hands. "I do not know what our future holds. I do not know if we will succeed or fail, if we will have children or grow old together. But I know that you gave me choice when no one else would. I know that you treated me as worthy when everyone else said I was flawed. And I know that I love you." The hall was silent. Teho felt his heart swell. Now it was his turn. "Avalyn," he said, "when I came to this world, I expected to find arrogance and contempt. I found those things, but I also found you, a woman of courage and kindness, hidden away because her gifts were too honest for those around her." He looked into her eyes. "Among humans, we believe that the greatest strength is not power or control. It is compassion. It is the courage to feel, to care, to connect with others even when it hurts. You have more of that strength than anyone I have ever known." He raised her hands to his lips and kissed them gently. I choose you, Evelyn. Not because I was told to. Not because it serves my world or my mission. I choose you because you are extraordinary. I choose you because knowing you has made me better. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure you know how much you are worth. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears, happy tears for once. She laughed softly and wiped them away. The officiant declared them bonded. The hall erupted in cheers and applause. Even some of the Valorian nobles clapped, though awkwardly, as if they had forgotten how. Tejo pulled Evelyn close and kissed her. It was their first real kiss, and it was everything he had imagined. Around them, the future felt possible. After the ceremony, Queen Mirabelle approached them. "Ambassador," she said. Then she stopped. "No, Tejo. I should call you by your name now. You are family." Tejo bowed. "I am honored, Your Majesty." The Queen turned to Evelyn. She took her daughter's hands, something she had not done for centuries before, 6 months ago. "My daughter, my beautiful, strong daughter." Her voice trembled slightly. "When you were born, I held you and made you a promise. I promised you power, status, glory. I thought those were the greatest gifts I could give." She shook her head. "I was wrong. The greatest gift I can give you now is this. May you be happy." Evelyn embraced her mother. The Queen held her tightly. "I love you, Mother," Evelyn whispered. "I love you too," the Queen replied. "I always did. I just forgot how to show it." That evening, a new treaty was signed between humanity and the Valorian Empire. Not a treaty of trade or military alliance, a treaty of partnership. Humans and Valorians would work together to solve the extinction crisis. They would share knowledge, resources, and hope. The old walls between them would come down. It would not be easy. There would be challenges and setbacks. Some Valorians would resist. Some humans would fail. But the foundation was laid. The first step was taken. And standing at the heart of it all were a human ambassador and a Valorian princess who had chosen each other not for duty, but for love. Late that night, Tejo and Evelyn walked in her garden. The flowers were glowing softly in the moonlight. The stream made gentle sounds over the stones. "The nurseries," Evelyn said quietly. "They have been empty for so long. Do you think we will fill them again?" Tejo put his arm around her. "I think we will try. And I think that trying matters more than succeeding." She leaned against him. "I never thought I would have this. A partner, a purpose, a future. Neither did I." She looked up at him. "Are you afraid of what comes next?" He thought about it honestly. "Yes, but I was afraid to come here. I was afraid to meet you. I was afraid to speak the truth to your mother." He smiled. "Being afraid hasn't stopped me yet." Evelyn smiled back. "No, it hasn't." They stood together in the garden, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home, his people, and somewhere out there were millions of Valorians waiting to see if hope was real or just another disappointment. Tejo didn't know what the future would bring. He didn't know if they would succeed in saving the Valorian species. He didn't know if their love would last through the challenges ahead. But he knew this. He had asked a dying queen if her daughter had a choice, and that single question had begun to change an empire. Perhaps that was the great gift of humanity. Not strength or technology or conquest, but the simple courage to ask, "What do you want?" and the simple grace to listen to the answer. Evelyn touched his face and turned it toward hers. "I love you," she said. "I wanted to say it again when it's just us." "I love you too," he replied. "I'll say it as many times as you need to hear it." She kissed him softly. Then she took his hand and led him back toward the palace. "Come," she said. "Tomorrow we start building a new future, but tonight is ours." Tejo followed her into the light. Behind them, the garden bloomed in the darkness. proof that even dying things could be saved if someone cared enough to try. And above them, the stars shone down on a galaxy where two species had taken the first step toward something better, not because they were forced to, but because they chose to.